Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We just got some big news. Gordon Hayward inked up with the Charlotte Hornets, 4 years, $120 million. This is a big, big contract, and you have to be a little worried if you're a Hornets fan that it's Nick Batum part two. But I think that it's a risk, and it's a calculated risk on the Hornets' part, and I'm actually kind of a fan of it. But before we get into that further, I want to remind you to leave a like and subscribe. Remember, it helps you out because you get all of my great basketball content right there in your sub box, and it helps me out because I get some extra growth on my channel. Without further ado, let's talk about this big move. Gordon Hayward is a wing player, super skilled, is a good shooter, can handle the ball, and is a decent playmaker from the three. Is solid on the defensive end, plays smart, makes the right rotations, and is a good team defender overall. He's nothing special athletically, and after all of the injuries he's had in the last couple of years, that's even more true, but he's a good wing player, and he's definitely going to be, I'd say he's the best player on this team now moving forward. For Charlotte, like I said before, this is a calculated risk, and I think they might have made the right decision. This was something that I talked about with the Pistons before, too. This season, there's not too many teams that have cap space. Obviously, that is for a reason, as this isn't a great free agency class. Lots of the teams that are based in big markets have set it up so that they have their cap space next offseason. But in this offseason, there are a few teams with cap space. The New York Knicks, the Charlotte Hornets, the Detroit Pistons, and the Atlanta Hawks. This was a chance for teams in small markets like the Hawks, like the Pistons, like obviously the Hornets, to go after those big name free agents and not have a whole lot of competition. These teams need to add talent in order for them to continue to improve. In Wednesday's NBA draft, the Charlotte Hornets selected LaMelo Ball to be their franchise player moving forward. This is the guy that they are going to build around. In getting Gordon Hayward, they get a player that can really play alongside LaMelo Ball and complement him in a very good way. He's another guy who can function as a secondary ball handler, can space the floor for them, and improve this defense, which is really where they needed to show improvement based off last season. And Hayward really does that for them. Like I said, this year, Hayward is coming off an injury. He didn't have his best season because he was really like the fourth option on the Celtics last year, so he didn't put up great numbers. And the Hornets decided this might be our best shot to get a top 50 player in the NBA. We're not going to have a whole lot of competition for him. We're going to have to overpay because we're the Charlotte Hornets and not too many people want to come here. And in order for us to outbid the other teams that want to get Gordon, we're going to have to give him a big contract. But in the end, I think that there's a chance that this ends up being worth it. I don't think there's any way he lives up to $30 million annually. If you're making that kind of money, you have to be at least an all-star, if not an all-NBA type player. And maybe Gordon Hayward can become a fringe all-star on a team like the Hornets where he's going to have the ball in his hands a lot. I would not be surprised if he blossoms into a 20-point scorer once again on this Hornets team. But either way you slice it, this is an overpayment for Gordon Hayward. But it does make this team significantly better. I now think that they have firmly cemented themselves in the running for the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference next season. They're able to trot out a starting lineup of LaMelo Ball, Devontae Graham, Gordon Hayward, PJ Washington, and Cody Zeller. I was hoping that they would add an upgraded center, but Cody Zeller really functions well as a stopgap type center. He's an average starting center in the NBA, and he's a good player. He's really good as a screen setter, and he's a good rim runner to the basket. I think that he's going to develop a nice pick and roll two-man game along with LaMelo Ball. They're going to formulate some nice chemistry, and that's going to end up being a nice source of offense and a good play that the Hornets can really rely on in the half court. Zeller also does his job on defense. He's not super mobile. He's not a great rim protector, but he's at least average, and that's what you're going to need from your center. I mean, Cody Zeller is like the epitome of an average starting center. So you didn't really necessarily need to upgrade there, and I think that Gordon Hayward was a much better player than any of the centers they could have added. I would rather have Gordon Hayward than Hassan Whiteside, or I guess you could go even with the ones that were signed yesterday, like Derek Favors, Montrezl Harrell. I would rather have Gordon Hayward over any of those guys, with the possible exception of Christian Wood. But Gordon Hayward is certainly the more proven commodity between him and Christian Wood, so I don't actually mind that either. This lineup here is solid. They have a bench now with Terry Rozier, Miles Bridges, and not much. I mean, the Martin brothers. So they're pretty set on the wing. Malik Monk has a chance to be a guy who can come off the bench and get you a bucket. He's obviously atrocious defensively, and his efficiency needs to improve, but he can score off the bench. And they have a good starting lineup here. You know, there's a lot to like about this team, and I'm kind of a fan of the Hayward signing overall. I think I covered pretty much everything. This is going to be a short video, but that's really my reaction to the Hornets signing Gordon Hayward. They got their young superstar of the future, hopefully. Hopefully. They got their young building block for the team. They surrounded him with a good veteran. They have other good complementary young pieces like Rozier, like Graham, like the Martin twins, like PJ Washington, like Miles Bridges. And they still have some young players that could develop. Jalen McDaniels, Nick Richards. I guess probably the Martins would fall more into this group than complementary role players, but I think the Hornets did a good job of seizing the moment when they had it. They brought on the best player available to add to their roster. I think it's a good fit. It does push Miles Bridges to the bench, but I also think that he's got a chance to play better there as a third wing option for them. He still can get a high amount of minutes for your team. I'm a fan of this. I know that it's probably going to be against the consensus because of that overpay, but they took advantage of their opportunity, and we'll see how it works out. Like I said before, it's a calculated risk. Hayward is injury prone. He's aging. There's a chance that this contract looks absolutely terrible as it continues to age. But he is a good basketball player, and when you're Charlotte and you have a chance to add someone like this, you have to take advantage of it. Overall, I am a fan of this team. I think they're going to be a lot of fun to watch. LaMelo Ball, obviously, is a terrific playmaker. If his jump shot can come along and he can give better effort on defense, I think he's got a chance to be a top 5 point guard in the NBA. Devontae Graham is an elite shooter, both off the catch and shoot and off the bounce. He's going to give them another ball handler who can take on a lot of that load when LaMelo Ball is either on the bench or even playing alongside LaMelo. Terry Rozier is elite in the catch and shoot. He's a knockdown three-point shooter, and that's going to feed off terrifically with LaMelo Ball, who is going to create a lot of open looks for his teammates. Hayward adds that big wing presence that can be a secondary playmaker and a 20-point scorer for your team. Miles Bridges is a good defensive player who has a chance now to come off the bench and provide an athletic spark and good minutes on the defensive end of the floor. PJ Washington is an average defensive player who can knock the ball down from the three-point line. And when I say average defensive player, it's usually a compliment to these guys, because usually when you have young players like this, they're not good defensively. But these guys are already average, and they have a chance to continue to improve as they grow older and mature into their NBA bodies. I know I sound crazy here, but I like this move for the Hornets. If Vernon Carey can develop into a starting level center, or Nick Richards can, they continue to draft well. I mean, next year, I don't know that it's a lock that this team makes the playoffs. I think this may be more of a move for 2 or 3 years down the line. They secured Hayward for 4 seasons. So even next year, if they're not good, and they get another high lottery pick, they can just continue to add to this roster, continue to improve it, and they have a player that's, I don't think I can call him like a borderline all-star, but he's an elite role player. He does what he does at a very high level, and that is very, very important to this team. I am a fan of this signing. I know that they overpaid, and I get that he's got injury problems and he's getting older, but they had to take a chance, and I'm glad that they did because this is going to make this team a lot more interesting, and I give them a real shot to go to the playoffs next year. Let me know in the comment section what you think. Am I crazy for liking this trade? Maybe I'm just in love with this Hornets roster because I'm such a huge fan of so many of their young players. I love LaMelo Ball. I think that he's going to blossom into a spectacular point guard. I think he'll be a top 30 player in the NBA someday. I like Terry Rozier. I think that the contract they signed him to last offseason was way over complained about. He played really well last year and is going to be a good shooter and a good role player, either as a guy coming off the bench as a sixth man or as a spot-up shooter in the starting lineup. I like Gordon Hayward a lot. I hope that we can see him bounce back and have much better injury success in a Hornets jersey than he did in a Celtics jersey. I like PJ Washington as a floor spacer, and I like some of the younger guys too, like the Martin twins and Jalen McDaniels. I'm a big fan of those guys, especially Jalen. I think there's a chance that he blossoms into an above-average four-man in the NBA because of his length and shooting ability. This team makes me excited. They need to add a little bit on the edges. I think they need to add a backup center because Nick Richards and Vernon Carey are not ready to play NBA minutes. Richards is super raw on offense and needs to improve his decision-making on defense, and Carey is a dinosaur who doesn't have much game on offense and is completely immobile on defense. But if they can shore up this team around the edges, I think they can be a lot of fun next season. And if LaMelo Ball grows into the top 20 player that I think that there's a chance he can get to, maybe one day we'll be seeing the Charlotte Hornets winning playoff series for the first time in a long time. Let me know in the comment section what you think. I think I already said that a while ago, but then I went on another tangent, so I'll remind you one more time. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. That's going to be it for me. Ladies and gentlemen, I will see you all again very soon.